You want to know what a broken hip sounds like over the phone? It sounds exactly like nothing. No gasp, no worry in his voice. Just 3 seconds of dead air, and then, "Dad, can this wait till the weekend?" That's the sound my son made when I told him I was on the kitchen floor. Not the sound he made 2 hours later when he FaceTimed his mother-in-law to show her the horse trailer. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up, because you need to understand who I was before that Thursday in March. Because the man I was when I hit that floor is not the man who got up off it. My name's Walter Pruitt. I'm 71 years old. Spent 38 years running heating and cooling service calls all over Dayton, Ohio, the kind of town where the guy at the hardware store still remembers your name because he remembers your father's name first. I raised one son, Cole, in a split level on Brantford Avenue, 4 blocks from the Stillwater River, where the loudest thing most nights was the freight trains running through around midnight. I'm not a complicated man. I like my coffee with 2 sugars, my Reds games on the radio, and I like fixing things. That last part matters. Hold on to it. 3 weeks before all this, I slipped on a patch of ice, getting the trash cans to the curb, and came down hard on my right hip. Not broken clean through, the ER doc said, but a serious fracture, the kind that needed a specific brace, a walker with the right kind of wheels, and a round of physical therapy that insurance wanted to argue about before it would cover a dime. Until that argument settled itself, the brace and the first 2 weeks of PT were $175 out of pocket. $175. I want you to sit with that number, because it's going to come back around later, and it's going to hurt worse the second time. I wasn't hurting for the money. I need to be clear about that, because I know how these stories usually go. Everybody assumes the old man's broke. I wasn't broke. My wife Donna and I had a life insurance policy from her mother that had just paid out, sitting in a joint account that hadn't finished clearing because the insurance company does everything on their own calendar, not yours. I was asset rich and cash poor for exactly 9 days. The way anybody can be cash poor for 9 days. So I called my son. "Cole, it's Dad. I need a favor." The brace and the PT copay came to $175, and until Donna's check clears next Friday, we're a little tight. "Any chance you could front it? I'm good for it." He said, Yeah, of course, Dad. Let me just check what we've got moving around right now." Fast. Too fast. The kind of fast where you can hear a man already thinking about something else entirely. I should have caught it. I didn't. Welcome to Dad's Raw Revenge. Stick around, because this one's going to take you somewhere you don't expect. Hit that like button, and tell me in the comments what state you're watching from tonight. Trust me, you're going to want to see how this one ends. Cole came by that Thursday afternoon, still wearing his work polo from the dealership where he sells commercial trucks, big cell phone clipped to his belt like he was still 25. He didn't sit down. Stood in the middle of my living room, checking that phone every few seconds like it was going to ring with something more important than his own father. "Look, Dad," he said, not really looking at me. "Things are just tight right now. Really tight. Between the mortgage and Brianna's tuition for the girls, it's just not a great week for extra. Not a great week. I want you to understand something about me. I don't push. 36 years married to Donna, 31 years raising that boy, and if there's one thing anybody in this family will tell you, it's that Walter doesn't push." I nodded. I said, Sure, I understand." I was about to ask if he could do half, 80-something now, and the rest after Friday, when his phone buzzed loud enough that I heard it from across the room. "Hey man, she's hitched up and ready. Come get her before the weekend rush." Cole's whole face changed. I watched it happen in real time. Tired son performing for his father dissolving into something bright, something alive. "Perfect timing," he said, already turning toward my door. "Tell Ray I'm 20 minutes out." Ray. My son said that name the way other men say Christmas morning. He hung up, shoved the phone in his pocket, gave me that tight, quick smile you give a stranger holding open a door, not your own father. "Anyway, Dad, gotta run. We'll sort you out this weekend, promise. Lock up behind you when you head out." And here's the part you need to really hear, because it's the hinge this whole story swings on. I looked at my son standing in my living room, already halfway out my front door, and I said, calm as anything, "Don't worry about it, Cole. I understand." 3 words I've replayed 100 times since, because I didn't understand. Not even close. He left. Storm door banged shut. That thin metal clap was the only sound he made leaving, and then it was just me, my recliner, and a hip that still felt like somebody had backed a truck over it. I didn't stew, not right away. I put the Reds pregame on and let it wash over me, same as I let everything wash over me, because that's who I'd trained myself to be for 30-some years. About 2 hours later, Donna called me over to the front window. She sounded pleased, the way she gets when something feels like good news for the family. "Walter, come look at this," she said. "Cole's over at Ray's. Look." I got up slow, careful, my hips still not trusting the walker completely, and pulled back the curtain. There, in Ray's driveway, 3 houses down, sat a gleaming horse trailer, brand new, aluminum sides catching the afternoon sun, the kind of trailer that costs more than the first house Donna and I ever owned. Cole was walking Ray around it, pointing at the ramp, the dividers, grinning like a kid. And there was Brianna off to the side, phone up, filming the whole thing for an audience that would number in the hundreds by dinner time. $42,000. I did the math right there with the curtain pinched between two fingers. $175 denied that afternoon. $42,000 delivered that same afternoon. Same day, same sun, same wallet. I let the curtain fall back into place. I didn't say a word to Donna about what I was thinking because, honestly, it hadn't formed into a thought yet. It was just a weight, low in my chest, somewhere between my ribs and my stomach, the kind of feeling right before you throw up or right before you cry, and you're not sure which one it's going to be. Donna asked if I was hungry, said she could heat up the pot roast from Sunday. I told her I wasn't hungry, and it wasn't a lie. My stomach had no room left for anything. We watched the rest of the game. The Reds lost. Fitting. Around 9 that night, after Donna had gone up to bed, I got myself out of that recliner one more time. Slow, careful, the walker squeaking a little on the kitchen tile. I went into the bathroom, flicked on the light, that old fluorescent tube that's been buzzing since before Cole moved out. I opened the medicine cabinet and looked at the brace instructions and the PT schedule taped inside the door, both stamped with a balance due I hadn't been able to pay yet because I'd been too proud to ask twice. I took them down, folded them, and set them on the counter. I didn't cry. I want to tell you I did, but I didn't. Something in me just went very, very still. Funny thing about real anger, the kind that's earned and not the hot kind, it doesn't shake, it settles. I walked into the den, pulled my old service ledger out of the bottom drawer of my desk, the same one I used to log every furnace call and every part I ever ordered back when I still had my own crew. Hadn't opened it in almost 3 years. I clicked my pen and wrote 5 words, plain as anything. March 14th, PT brace, $175 denied. I closed the book, squared it flat on the desk edge the way I used to square up a stack of invoices before tax season. I didn't know yet what I was going to do with that line. I just knew I wasn't going to forget it. And 3 houses down, my son was probably showing Ray how the trailer's brake controller worked, feeling like a king, having no idea at all that his own father had just started keeping a different kind of book on him. I turned off the light and lay in the dark a long time, staring at the ceiling fan doing its slow, tired circles. I wasn't thinking about my hip. I was thinking about Ray, because in 4 days that man was going to show up at my door with a folder under his arm, and whatever was inside, it was going to make that $42,000 trailer look like the cheapest mistake my son ever made. 4 days. That's how long I had to wait, though I didn't know it yet. Nobody hands you a countdown clock. You just live the days and hope you're paying attention when it matters. The morning after the trailer, I got up, made my coffee with 2 sugars like always, sat across from Donna at the table like nothing had happened. That's the thing about being the quiet one. Everybody assumes quiet means fine, nobody checks twice. Donna was buttering toast, humming along to the radio, when she said, "Wasn't that generous of Cole getting Ray that trailer? Ray's been talking about one for years. Here we go." "Sure," I said. "Real generous." She caught something in my voice. Because 36 years married to a man who doesn't talk much, you learn to hear what's underneath what he does say. She set the knife down. "Walter, what's wrong?" I had the sentence loaded up and ready. "Your son turned down $175 for my hip brace yesterday morning and bought Ray a $42,000 trailer by dinner." Instead, I said, "Nothing. Just tired. Coward," I thought. "Since when did you start lying to your own wife to keep the peace?" "Since always, if I'm honest. That's the answer. Since always." It didn't stay buried long. 3 days later, Sunday, Donna found out anyway. Not from me, from her own worry, which in hindsight is almost funny, because her worry is what cracked this whole thing open. We were over at Cole's for one of those family cookouts where everybody stands around a grill pretending it isn't 50 degrees out. Donna pulled Brianna aside near the cooler. I wasn't meant to hear it, but you can't keep a secret in a backyard the size of a postage stamp. "Brianna, honey, I'm just a little worried about Walter's hip. That brace copay got held up, and Cole said money was tight, so your father-in-law's been going without the second PT session he was supposed to have this week. I don't want him falling again." There it is. She knew. Brianna didn't even look up from the potato salad. "Mom, it's fine. Cole couldn't swing it this week. It's not that big a deal. He'll get squared away Friday." Not that big a deal. 4 words. My hip, my fall risk, my recovery. Filed under not that big a deal. In the same week her husband dropped 42 grand on her father like pocket change. I was standing by the fence with a paper plate I wasn't eating off of, and that same low weight settled back into my chest. Here's what I didn't know yet. What I wouldn't find out until 4 days later. Ray was standing right there too, refilling his cup at the cooler, close enough to hear every word. And Ray is not a man who lets numbers sit crooked in his head. 29 years running his own excavation company will do that to you. Numbers either add up or they don't, and when they don't, Ray goes looking for the reason why. He didn't say anything that day. Not to Brianna, not to Cole, not to me. He just quietly topped off his drink and wandered back toward the grill. But he caught my eye once, just for a second, across that yard, and there was something in his face that hadn't been there an hour earlier. He was doing the same math I'd already done 4 days before. Let me tell you a little about this family, because you need to understand the trap I was sitting in before Ray ever showed up at my door. Donna loves Cole the way only a mother can, completely and a little bit blindly. And she's terrified, genuinely terrified, of losing time with our grandkids, Cole and Brianna's 2 little girls. Brianna had made that fear real once, months back. Some offhand comment about how families sometimes need space when things get complicated. Donna never forgot that sentence. It sat in her like a splinter. So when I finally told her, later that week, the whole thing, the $175 denial and the $42,000 trailer on the same day, she didn't get angry at Cole. She got scared. "Please, Walter," she said, gripping my arm at our own kitchen table, eyes wet. "Just let it go. He's under so much pressure trying to keep up with Brianna's family. He'll make it right. He always does. Just skip the second PT session for 1 more week. Don't make a scene. I can't lose time with those girls, Walter. I can't lose my grandbabies. I can't lose my grandbabies. Not I can't believe he did that to you. Not that's not okay. Just fear, dressed up as pleading." I looked at my wife, the same woman who once chased a contractor down our driveway with a garden hose for shorting us on a paving job in 1991, the same woman who doesn't scare easy, and I saw how small one offhand comment from Brianna had made her. I didn't argue. I nodded. "Okay, Donna," I said quietly. "I hear you." But something in me had already moved past hearing her. I wasn't agreeing. I was just done spending energy trying to convince someone who wasn't ready to be convinced. There's a difference between giving in and going quiet on purpose. Nobody tells you the second one is a lot more dangerous. Meanwhile, Cole was busy making a different kind of mistake. The kind you only make when you've decided your father's silence means your father is harmless. He started calling more that week, not once to ask about the hip, not once about the PT schedule, but to talk about getting ahead of things, his words, regarding Donna's insurance money, which was now maybe 2 weeks from clearing. "Hey, Dad," he said on one of those calls, breezy like Thursday had never happened. "Once Mom's check comes through, we should really sit down and talk about setting you 2 up better. Maybe a joint account, something simpler, so you're not juggling all that paperwork at your age." At your age. I'm 71, not 91. I ran service calls with these 2 hands while he was still riding a bike with training wheels. "Sure, Cole," I said. "We'll talk about it." He heard agreement. I meant nothing of the sort, but that was the exact mistake he kept making, mistaking my calm for my consent. He genuinely believed, I think, that a man who wouldn't push over $175 was a man who'd sailed past being any kind of threat at all, just a soft, aging father easing into needing to be handled. He had no idea I'd already opened a ledger with his name in it. And underneath all of it, the trailer, the joint account pitch, the breezy calls, was Brianna and her family. I want to be fair here, because it's easy to make her the whole villain and skip the real reason underneath it. Brianna grew up the youngest of three. Two older brothers who'd both done well for themselves, one in commercial real estate downtown, the other running a car dealership group across 3 counties. Family gatherings on her side always carried this undercurrent of who's keeping up. Cole felt it every single time. That trailer wasn't really a gift to Ray. It was a receipt, proof, in front of Brianna's whole family, that Cole belonged in that room too. He'd taken out a high-interest signature loan to buy it. I didn't know that yet, but looking back, it explains everything, why he panicked over $175 like it might break him the same week he signed off on tens of thousands in debt. It was never about the $175. It was about what my request cost him socially, against what that trailer bought him socially. In his head, the math made sense. In mine, it never would. Friday came. Donna's check finally cleared. I drove myself, slow, careful, my hips still stiff on the clutch of my old Ford, down to the pharmacy and the PT office and paid the balance myself, cash, like I should have been able to do a week and a half earlier without asking anybody for anything. I finished the missed session that afternoon, sat in my recliner that night, and felt the pain actually start easing the way it was supposed to the whole time, and I thought, this is the last time being polite cost me my own care. I didn't know yet that the real story hadn't even started. 4 days after that, a gray Tuesday morning, the kind of March day in Ohio where you can't decide if you need a coat, there was a knock at my door. Firm, deliberate. Not Cole's knock, which is always 2 fast taps, and he's already turning the handle before you answer. This one was slower, heavier. I opened it, and there was Ray. Just Ray. No Brianna, no trailer, no small talk lined up. He had a manila folder under his arm, and his face had none of the easy neighborliness he usually wore over the fence. "Walter," he said, "got a minute?" "Sure, Ray. Come on in." He didn't come in. Stood right there on my porch, folder held out like it might burn him if he held on to it too long. "I'm not staying," he said. "I just need you to have this. Read it before Cole comes around again." Before Cole comes around. Cole wasn't even coming over that I knew of. "Ray, what is this?" He looked at me a long second. Something in his face I hadn't seen from him before. Not anger exactly, more like disappointment aimed at something bigger than either of us standing on that porch. "He thinks I'm in his corner on this," Ray said, quiet. "I'm not. Not after what's in there." He turned and walked back down my driveway to his own truck, not the trailer's tow vehicle, his old work pickup, and drove off without another word. I stood there on my porch, hip aching a little in the cold, holding a folder I didn't understand yet. Every instinct I had told me, whatever was inside was going to matter a lot more than $175 or $42,000 ever did. I went back inside, sat at my kitchen table, the same table where Donna had begged me to let it go, the same table we'd have Sunday dinner at with the whole family in a few days, and I turned that folder over twice before I broke the seal. The first page was dealership financing paperwork. My eyes moved down and caught on something that made my stomach turn over slow, like a truck shifting gears on a hill. High-interest signature loan, 24% APR. My own name and address listed as a secondary reference for collections purposes. I never gave anyone permission to use my name for anything. I turned to the second page, and that's when I stopped breathing for a second. Because right there at the bottom of the application, next to a line marked Co-Applicant Acknowledgement, was a signature. My signature. Except, I never signed it. If you've been listening a while, tell me down in the comments where you're tuning in from tonight, and if this story's got you sitting up straighter already, go ahead and hit that like button now, because it only gets heavier from here. I sat at my own kitchen table and stared at that line until the letters stopped looking like words and just looked like shapes. W. Pruitt. My name, forged in a hand that was almost right. Close enough to fool a loan processor scanning 50 applications a day. Not close enough to fool the man whose name it was. 31 years. I taught that boy how to sweat a copper pipe without burning the house down. I taught him how to look a man in the eye and shake his hand and mean it. I never once taught him how to forge a signature, and yet here we were. I read the rest of it twice, slow, the way I used to read a supplier's invoice looking for the line that didn't add up. It was all there. The 24% APR, my address as a secondary reference, which meant if Cole defaulted, collectors would eventually be calling my house too, not just his. And clipped to the back, a single handwritten page from Ray himself. No letterhead, just his own scrawl at the bottom. I am formally refusing this trailer and returning it to the dealer. I will not accept a gift built on a lie to my own son-in-law's father. Ray. I sat there a long time with that stack of paper in my lap. Donna came down around 10, found me still at the table, coffee gone cold in front of me. Walter, you've been sitting there an hour. What is that? I didn't hand it over right away. I looked at her, my wife of 36 years, the woman who'd begged me 4 days earlier to just let it go, to skip the session, to keep the peace. And for the first time since this whole thing started, I felt something other than that low, settled weight in my chest. I felt clear. Sit down, Donna, I said. You need to see this. I watched her face while she read it, watched the color drain out of it page by page. By the time she got to my forged signature, her hand was flat against her mouth. Walter, she couldn't finish it. I knew about the trailer. I knew he'd told you money was tight. I told myself it was nothing, that he'd make it right. She looked up, eyes wet. I didn't know about this. I know, I said, and I meant it. Donna's sin was fear, not fraud. Different crime, different sentence. What are you going to do? She asked. Here's the thing about being the quiet one. Your whole life. People assume when you finally act, it's going to be loud. It's not. It's going to be final. I'm going to do what I should have done a long time ago, I said. I'm going to stop protecting him from himself. Donna's check, plus the balance of her mother's estate that finally settled 12 days later, came to just over $610,000 after the lawyer's cut and taxes. The kind of number that changes what a man's options look like. I didn't tell Cole the figure. I didn't have to. He'd already been sniffing around it 2 weeks earlier, back when he still thought I was just his soft, aging father who needed help managing things. He called the week the money hit. Same breezy tone as always. Hey, Dad, heard the estate finally settled. That's great news. Hey, we should really get you and Mom sat down with Brianna's accountant, set something up better, a trust maybe, take that burden off you too. He still thought I was the same man from 3 weeks earlier. Funny you should mention a trust, I said. Come by Sunday. Family dinner. Bring Brianna. I'll have Ray and your mother there too. A pause on the line. Just half a second, but I heard it. Ray's coming too? Sure, I said. Man's practically family now. Got himself a trailer and everything. Let him sit with that for a week. Sunday came. That first patch of real spring warmth Ohio gets before the humidity ruins everything. Windows cracked. Kids playing 2 streets over. Donna made a full dinner. Pot roast. Her scalloped potatoes. Green beans from the farm stand off Wilmington Pike. She wanted it to feel normal. I let her have that, even knowing it was the last time it would. Cole showed up first in good spirits, already talking before he was through the door about some new sales territory he'd landed at the dealership. Brianna came in behind him, polite as always, complimenting Donna's potatoes before she'd even tasted them. Ray arrived last, quiet, nodded at me once on his way past. A nod that said, I'm ready when you are. We ate. We talked about nothing, the Reds' losing streak, the girls' soccer schedule, Brianna's mother's new knee. Cole was in rare form all through dinner, dropping little hints about getting Dad's finances squared away now that the big check had cleared, about taking some of that weight off our shoulders. Brianna nodded along at everything he said, the same way she'd nodded along at not that big a deal 3 weeks earlier. Let him finish his plate. Let him get comfortable. A man talks the most right before he stops being able to. When Donna started clearing the dishes, I asked her to leave them and sit back down. That's when the room felt the shift. I reached under my chair and pulled out the folder my attorney had prepared that week. A good one, downtown Dayton firm. the kind Cole had never once imagined his quiet, easygoing father would ever need. "Cole," I said, "you mentioned wanting to help manage things now that Mom's estate is settled. I appreciate that. So let me tell you exactly how things are being managed." I slid a page across the table. 3 weeks ago, I set up an irrevocable trust. As of this past Tuesday, it's fully funded and executed. You are not listed as trustee. You are not listed as a beneficiary. Not now, not ever, unless a court dissolves it, and my attorney assures me that isn't happening. Cole actually laughed, a short, disbelieving bark. "Wait, what? Dad, you can't just, I can." And I did. I kept my voice calm, steady, the same voice I'd used on him a month earlier when I told him I understand, don't worry about it. Except understanding wasn't what I was offering him this time. "The trust's income," I went on, "is being directed to a foundation Mom and I are setting up. It covers physical therapy and mobility equipment for seniors who can't clear their insurance holds in time. $175 at a time, mostly." I let that sit a second. Seemed fitting. You could have heard a pin drop on that table. Brianna's fork froze halfway to her plate. My face ran through about 4 different colors. "You're joking. This has to be a joke." "Dad, I'm your son. You're a man who forged my signature," I said. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "You're a man who lied to me about $175 while spending $42,000 on a gift for someone else. You're not my son right now, Cole. You're a stranger I used to know." He shot to his feet so fast his chair nearly went over. "This is insane. Over $175? You're punishing me over $175? There it is." He still thought this was ever about the money. Donna stood up next, and I watched her do something I honestly wasn't sure she had left in her. She looked at Cole, really looked at him the way a mother looks at a grown son when she finally sees him clearly for the first time in years. "I knew about the trailer, Cole," she said, her voice cracking. "I knew you turned your father down for $175, and I stayed quiet because I was scared of losing time with those girls. I let your own father skip a physical therapy session to keep the peace for you. I was a coward, Cole. But I am done protecting your pride at the expense of your father's dignity." She turned to me, tears running now. "But please, Walter, I don't want to lose our son. I don't want to lose this family. Can't we find some way to fix this, together?" I looked at my wife. 36 years. I loved her enough to be honest with her even now. "Donna, I love you," I said. "But love doesn't mean letting someone destroy himself." Cole made his choices. Now he has to live inside them. I turned back to my son, still standing, chest heaving, looking for somewhere to point his anger, and finding nowhere to put it. "Here's what else you should know," I said. When Ray filed his formal, notarized refusal of that trailer with the lender, it triggered an automatic audit of the whole financing file. The moment their compliance department cross-references that forged co-applicant signature, they're calling the entire note due immediately. Cole's face went pale. "How do you even know?" I said, nodding across the table. "Ray already refused it in writing, weeks ago." Every head at that table turned to Ray. He hadn't said a word the whole meal. He set his fork down, folded his hands, and looked at Cole with something that wasn't quite pity and wasn't quite disgust, just tired disappointment. The kind that comes from a man who genuinely used to think better of you. "You had a good father, Cole," Ray said. "You threw that away trying to impress me. I never once asked you to." Cole looked at Brianna. I want to tell you she stood up for him. She didn't. She was staring at him with an expression I recognized, the exact look Donna had given me the day I told her about the forged signature. The look of someone realizing the man across from them isn't who they thought they married. "Cole," she said quietly, "you told me you'd saved up for that trailer." He didn't answer her. He didn't have an answer left for anybody at that table. "You're holding a $42,000 debt you can't afford," I said, and my voice stayed level the whole time, because I wasn't the one who needed to raise it. "That's not my doing, Cole. That's yours. You built this. I just stopped paying for it." He left that night without finishing his coffee. Didn't slam the door. Didn't have the theater left in him, I think. Walked out the same quiet way he'd walked out a month before, except this time there was nothing waiting for him in the driveway but his own car and a debt he couldn't outrun. The bank did exactly what I said they would. Within 2 weeks, Cole's signature loan was called in early once the fraud flag hit compliance. And since Ray had already formally refused the trailer in writing, the dealership repossessed it, minus a hefty penalty for the miles already on it and the hitch work Cole had paid extra to have installed. He was left holding paperwork for a trailer he no longer had, on a loan he could no longer afford, built entirely on a lie he'd told to impress a man who never once asked to be impressed. Brianna moved out with the girls about 3 weeks after that dinner, went to stay with her sister across town for a while. I don't know the details of what happened in that marriage after, that's between the two of them. But I know Cole called this house 6 times over those 3 weeks, and I let every single one go to voicemail. The 7th time, he showed up on my porch himself, frantic, thinner than he'd looked a month earlier, like the whole thing had physically taken something out of him. "You ruined my life," he said, standing right where Ray had stood with that folder. "Over $175. You ruined my life over $175, Dad." I looked at my son, hip fully healed under me now, standing steady on my own porch, the ledger with his name in it locked in my desk drawer where it belonged. "I didn't ruin your life, Cole," I said. "You spent $42,000 trying to buy respect from strangers when all it would have taken to keep mine was a $175 favor for your father. You built your own trap. I just stopped paying the note on it." He didn't have anything to say to that. He never did. Not really. He turned around, walked back to his car, and I watched him go the same way I'd watched him drive off toward that trailer a month before. Except this time I wasn't the one left standing small in the driveway. 6 months later, I'm out in my garage refinishing an old oak dresser I picked up at an estate sale. Nothing fancy, just something to keep my hands busy now that the hip lets me stand a full afternoon without complaint. Donna comes out, softer than she used to be, humbler, but still my wife, still here. "Cole called," she says. "Wants to see you. Says he's changed." I don't stop sanding. "People don't change, Donna. They just learn to hide who they are a little better." "I know," she says. "But he's still our son. I still want us to be a family. I know it's hard. I know what he did. But I can't stop hoping." I set the sandpaper down, look at her. "I gave Cole everything," I say. "I taught him a trade. I taught him how to provide. I never taught him how to be a man of his word." That's not my failure, Donna. That's his choice. What if he's ready to choose differently? I think about that a long moment, longer than she probably expects. Then he knows where I live. I say finally, "My door's open," but he doesn't walk through it until he's paid back what he actually owes. Not the money, the trust. And that takes time. I go back to sanding. Donna nods, and after a while she goes back inside. I stand there in the evening light coming down over Brantford Avenue, over the same streets I've lived on my whole life, and for the first time in longer than I can remember, I'm not angry. I'm not bitter. They say the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. I don't hate my son. I'm just no longer willing to drown myself trying to save someone who refuses to swim. I built this life with these 2 hands. If Cole wants his, he's going to have to build it with his own. That's not revenge. That's just the cost of being a man who keeps his word, even when nobody else in the room does. If this one hit home for you, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new here, and let me know down in the comments where you're listening from tonight. I'll see you in the next one.